Greetings, friends. Reform Stoic here, back to another video. So, I mentioned on stream today that I recently had a discussion where, in passing, I mentioned that I had almost finished a degree in philosophy, and the guy said, "Oh man, you know what? I'm really into philosophy. Anything that stood out to you?" So he's trying to pick my brain, see my thoughts on philosophy. And so I started kind of going all over the place. Looking back, I found it a little bit of a frustrating discussion. And it just had me thinking about, like, you say a word and it means something to someone else. It means something different to someone else than it means to you. I mentioned something about the occult. I mentioned something about secret societies. And just you're starting to work with this person's definition of what they think the occult is or what they think a secret society is. And then the discussion starts becoming more and more broad, and I'm expanding out to these different topics and kind of going all over the place. And I look back and I just realize, that discussion didn't really get anywhere. And I feel like maybe this person, wasn't very impressed with anything I was saying because of their kind of lens. But what really got me thinking today and inspired this video is this person says, "I'm curious how your faith and your beliefs survived philosophy." This person's kind of implying that, philosophy tends to lead to nihilism. And, there's certainly people out there who would agree. I've come across a lot of theologians who don't speak very highly of the kind of belief systems that philosophers tend to have. And, we've kind of seen my own belief system change a lot and get to a place that's kind of hard to nail down and hard to explain, and ends up just creating and inspiring a lot of rants that kind of drift off, and it's hard to keep other people's attention on it. It's hard for me to continue my own interest and trying to convey the thoughts. It's a little bit hard to tie down lately. I'm kind of in the void right now. But wrestling with nihilism, this person saying, they said that they find nihilism unavoidable, and they're kind of challenging me for me to disprove nihilism or try to convince them away from nihilism. And it made me want to make this video, why I'm not a nihilist. And I made a comment on stream that could be seen, again, just my thoughts on communication lately. I have an intention when I say something, and then people hear what I say, and they come up with their own interpretation. And what it comes down to is that just means that you're a bad communicator. If you are trying to convey something and people aren't interpreting it the right way, then you did a bad job communicating. And there's definitely a truth to that. But at the same time, it goes down to these words. People say that there's a crisis of empathy. The United States has sank into a deep empathy, and that's caused its destruction. And me trying to very quickly refute that, it's you're saying that leftism is equal to empathy. That's exactly what they're saying. Leftism equals empathy. Open borders, mass immigration, feminism, empathy. Multiculturalism, empathy. And, it's not it's completely alien to me. I don't see where people are getting this from. But a lot of the stuff that I talk about on my channel is how, the love of the world has grown cold. That's what Jesus said would happen. That was the prophecy, that the love of the world would grow cold, and, people would be rude to their parents, and people would just sink into disrespect overall, and people wouldn't love each other, and people would treat each other like trash. And that's absolutely the world that I see. And I'm in this weird place where, somebody sent me an email like, hey man, one of your mods blocked me because I questioned Christianity, and now I see that like you're a lot less Christian, so you think you could unban me? And it's like, well, yeah, I guess. I mean, I'm just in this place where it's like, I have explanations for everything I believe, but people just don't seem to care, or they don't want to hear it, or they don't understand what I'm saying. I'm sure some of it's bad communication, but I think a lot of it is just people's definitions. What does a cult mean to you? What does secret society mean to you? What does empathy mean to you? I mean, I've come across a lot of them. I tell this guy, well, it started with me being into the occult, and then he follows that up with, oh, did you have any indulgent experiences in the occult? It's like, oh, wow, so you hear occult, and you think like Rosemary's Baby, and you think like people in robes sacrificing people or whatever, or sex orgies, or Eyes Wide Shut. And when I said occult, I meant like meditation and maybe like pantheism, or what's the word, polytheistic religions, ancestral gods. I mean, so you say occultism, and that, what does that mean to who you're talking to? I say secret society, I'm like, when I'm talking about these things that I knew about, I was mentioning everything I just mentioned: pantheism, polytheism, ancient wisdom, Eastern wisdom, and then I'm also familiar with the secret societies. And this guy says something along the lines of, oh, so do you think that stuff is real? Like, what do I think the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn is real? Do I think that the AA is real, or the OTO is real? I mean, yeah, all those groups really exist. So it gets to a point where I feel like this person, they just have a superficial understanding that comes from conspiracy theories. But maybe not. Maybe I wasn't interpreting them properly. They weren't really like saying that much. They were saying a lot of fishing comments to try to keep pulling stuff out of me. I'm not overly frustrated by the discussion. Look, I think he's a cool guy, and on paper it's like the closest thing to an interesting discussion that I've had, but it was just this guy fishing to get me to say stuff, and I ended up saying a lot of stuff. And I guess in theory, it could give me that kind of like naked feeling, like, oh, I've shown my cards, I've said too much, this person's judging me. I don't necessarily think it was like that. But anyway, I don't want to babble too much here. Just this whole, what do words even mean? And when you don't have the correct definition or the correct understanding of a term, how people create these completely backward beliefs. Like, oh, the United States has deeply sank into empathy, and that's destroying us. It's like, but why is it that, from my perspective, like, everybody's a fucking psychopath, and all they care about is themselves? Somebody's wrong. It's like, oh, well, you're wrong, Stoic. Your life's study, you thinking that you're of the Brahmin caste, and you're a philosopher, and you've read all these books. You're wrong, and everybody else is right. And, this is the kind of stuff that right-wingers say. And I'm definitely, way more so than a departure from Christianity, it's a departure from the right wing, and then right-wing Christianity. But I would consider myself maybe a Christian mystic who's about to enter the void of just like more pure perennialism and pure metaphysics. So some of the things that have come to mind about... because then I start trying to explain some of these beliefs that I might have of my thoughts about Jesus. And it's like, okay, so you're Reformed Joseph Smith Stoic. Like, you are starting to have this kind of like culty view that maybe would attract like certain kinds of minds they just have that mindset where they want to believe something really, really obscure. It's like, oh man, Jesus the Subverter. Wow, that's really obscure. And that is the truth, but me and 10 people believe it. We're the smartest people in the world. We're the only people who are in the know. But what I came up with is that Christianity and other Abrahamic religions in their mainstream exoteric form, it seems to revolve around what you believe. Like, that's the church Christianity. It's really important that you believe this. You have to believe that Jesus is your Savior. It's all built around what you have to believe. And in the Protestant religion, that is the most important aspect, is salvation by faith alone. Meaning it's everything that you believe this. Or the Catholic religion is like in the direction of more works-based, where it's like a package. It's like, yeah, you have to believe this, but you also have to do this. There's a lot more to it, I would say, to the Catholic and Orthodox faith. And a lot of Protestants would be in the right to say that that could be a slippery slope to mysticism. That could be a slippery slope to occultism. That could be a slippery slope to heretical philosophy. And I mean, I think that's what we're kind of seeing happen in my life right now. I was a Protestant, and it was like, no, it doesn't say that in the Bible. It's just the Bible. Bible, 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 Bible. And then I became a Catholic, and now I'm kind of like more of a mystic, metaphysical philosopher character. So you've definitely like seen that in me, but I think that's because, in my opinion, it's more in line with the truth. So what I would say is that Christianity is about what you believe. You get saved by believing this. You have to believe this. And me personally, as somebody who's at least trying to be a teacher, there's not nearly that as many people listening right now as I'd like there to be, but I'm staying the path. I'm going forward. I'm fighting nihilism. That's where we're getting here. We're not doing too bad. We're only 12 minutes in, but I got to get to the point of how it's not so like, why aren't you a nihilist? You have to fight nihilism. It's like existence is trying to turn you into a nihilist, but maybe there's something behind it that loves you, and it's like that pure nihilism is like raw weight for you to bench press that makes you strong, You have to fight the nihilism. And my little passive-aggressive poke at this guy that I mentioned on stream, I didn't say it to him, but what I said on stream is like, this guy, he's got a little bit of a belly on him. Like, he's not in shape. It's like, of course you're a nihilist. And, that's like, oh, you're not in shape, therefore you're wrong, so I win. I mean, nihilism is a valiant opponent. Just pure nihilism is a very valiant opponent, especially when you don't try to appeal to it or defend it using science and atheism, because that's really cringe and annoying. But finishing my original point, as a teacher, attempting to be a teacher, I do feel like I have things to teach. It's not about what you believe for me. It's about what you do. I'm not trying to get you to believe anything. I want you to act. Now, what happens, I think a good explanation for why religion oftentimes is good. What right-wingers are appealing to with traditionalism, with the traditional world, the traditional United States was better. The traditional Christian West was better. And I've definitely come up with some arguments that at least like poke a couple of holes in that. But overall, I agree. It was very organized. People had beliefs that were maybe kind of out there, in a lot of people's opinion, but those arguably out there beliefs caused action that was good. These people believe something weird, but the way that they act as a result of their weird beliefs is good. And if you've never seen the South Park episode about Mormonism, I think that really encapsulates that idea. Like, it makes fun of Joseph Smith reading the tablets and, this kind of, I'm sure, watered down story of Mormonism. But then you look at the Mormon family, and they're all well-to-do, and they don't drink or do drugs, and they have money, and they spend time as a family, and they love their family, and they're not judgmental, and when you attack their beliefs, they don't care. And they're like, They're like these annoyingly perfect people, and their actions are all like annoyingly pure. But then you look at what they believe, and it's like, huh, that's kind of strange. So religion arguably has strange beliefs that result in pure actions. And the way I would see it, definitely like starting to think as a perennialist, which perennialism is this idea that all religions, for the most part, maybe there's a couple of duds in the pack that don't have much spiritual truth to them, but for the most part, all religions emanate from this pure truth. Like you're seeing a puzzle piece of like a bigger picture. And a concept that I was thinking of leading up to this video is like interacting with the metaphysical. Even if your religion isn't entirely accurate, or maybe you believe something that's like a skewed version of the truth. For example, there's a lot of people into the ancient alien stuff who say, hey, you know, this thing like Yahweh creating us and breathing life into us and telling us what to do and commanding the Jews through the desert with the tabernacle, causing the flood. What if this was like an advanced alien species that genetically spliced humanity, you know, maybe from like pre-existing apes and then their own DNA, and then they had the kind of technology to cause the flood? And like there's another explanation. There's like a higher explanation that a lot of people would see as very harrowing and negative, but we only have this like skewed picture where it's like, oh, you know, this is like this divine, all omnipotent entity, when maybe in reality it's more like this interpretation of the Sumerian religion where it's like a ancient alien that spliced us and created us in ways that can be explained through genetics and caused catastrophes on the earth in ways that can be explained with science. But that specific example aside, all religions kind of like emanate, seep down. It's like there's a crack in the sidewalk, and underneath the sidewalk is like a pure metaphysical truth, and these plants kind of grow out of the sidewalk, and then people's religion is like interacting with that plant. Its seeds are rooted in pure metaphysical truth. So whatever religion or tradition you have, that is your means of interacting with the spiritual, with the metaphysical. Now, I think part of what has sent me on my perennial quest that has continued beyond mainstream Christianity, beyond the Catholic Church, making me have to kind of like apologize for some of the things I said in the past. Technically, I could still arguably identify as kind of like a, maybe like a Catholic mystic, maybe on some level, but I don't even go to Mass, so probably not. I'm reading the autobiography, I think it's called like 7-Story Mountain by Thomas Merton, who was a Catholic mystic, so it's still in the ballpark. It's still in the influence. You know, I still read Catholic mystics, and I still respect them. Meister Eckhart was a Catholic mystic, but he was declared a heretic. As it stands right now, I would say that, like, I could almost be considered an Eckhartian. An Eckhartian, for a lack of a better term. Like, I really, really like Master Eckhart. He was a Catholic, but he was declared a heretic. We're getting somewhere good. So, part of what sent me on my perennial quest is that I have discussed this concept of the strange beliefs leading to the pure actions. Well, now we're starting to live in a time where people have the strange beliefs and they don't even have the pure actions, and they're kind of half-hearted and wishy-washy with their beliefs. And worst case scenario, a lot of Christian churches have just disintegrated into moral relativism, into leftist moral relativism. And a lot of people who, in my humble opinion, really don't know that much about metaphysics or Christianity or theology at all, they blame everything on that. There's a lot of people who are like, that is what happened to the West, man. All Christians are leftists who are way too empathetic, and that destroyed the West. And it's like, man, that is just not even an oversimplification. It's just wrong. Like, most right-wingers are Christians. But people want to say that it's their own beliefs and other people in their own beliefs that have done this. But I don't want to go in circles here. It's just that my almost kind of like prophetic vision here is that as we deepen into the Kali Yuga, which I really like Miguel Serrano's explanation of the Kali Yuga, there was a great struggle in favor of the truth. And this struggle was a gamble where if you win, you could create a new golden age, and if you lose, the world gets plummeted into the Kali Yuga. Well, that struggle was lost, and we have since been plunged into the Kali Yuga. As far as the specifics of what that struggle was and who the good side was, who did nothing wrong, so to speak, we're not going to get into that here. But there was a great struggle, and that struggle was lost, and we have now been plunged into the Kali Yuga. Since this great struggle, the world has been plunged into the Kali Yuga. I mean, that is like perfect. That really works. That really works. Even if you disagree about certain circumstances and specifics about that, we're in the Kali Yuga. I think a lot of people who would agree about certain things, disagree about certain things there, we can agree that we are in some sort of a Kali Yuga. A Christian perspective, these would be the end times. But I'm getting to a point where it's just so hard. You look at these TikTokers who just said, oh, the rapture's about to happen. I followed this guy on YouTube who's like, it's happening. The rapture's happening. And, you know, that guy that used to make fun of Cash App, we need to donate to Israel. He kept saying, like, we're about to witness the return of Jesus Christ. And maybe it's going to happen. Maybe in a week from now, Jesus is going to come. And I'm still rocking with Jesus, but I'm considering some strange things, you know, like the Gnostic Jesus. And I just think the Kali Yuga explanation works a lot better to explain how things are going. We are plummeted into a spiritually dark time, but I think Julius Evola's Ride the Tiger is like the silver lining, the thin silver lining of the Kali Yuga. That is how you survive the Kali Yuga. That is Julius Evola's attempt at giving you instructions on how to handle the Kali Yuga. And it's like a trampoline, it's like a jump starter. I'm trying to think of like the perfect term that can skyrocket your evolution to spirituality. Like this climate of the Kali Yuga, of the spiritually dead world where nihilism is all around. Okay, we're trying to address nihilism. Nihilism is everywhere to be found. There might as well be trees that have sprouted out of the ground. You can imagine like a dystopian, dark, concrete, destroyed world that kind of looks like how they showed the apocalypse in the Matrix, where like the sun died and there's like these trees that grow out of the concrete and they have these like disgusting black dark fruits. Those are the fruits of nihilism, and everyone is just grabbing these fruits off of the trees, and you have to fight it. But if you fight it and you do it properly and you realize the truth of the world that you're living in, this world can skyrocket you toward the highest truth. So back to the perennialism of all religions emanating from a divine truth, that only worked for so long. And in the Kali Yuga, these plants that grew out of the concrete from the pure source of the truth, these plants are dying, and it's not enough anymore. These plants have died, and you must now go on a perennial quest to search for the highest truth. These religions emanate from the highest truth, and it gives you a means to interact with the metaphysical. And, you know, and it sounds very smug and judgmental, like, oh, you know, these people aren't enlightened, these people in the churches, they don't know the real truth. I'm getting access to the real truth. And, you know, that is like the occult way. That is the way of the initiation, and there's a lot of people that think it's a scam or a heresy, and it leads you to Satan. Well, why am I not a nihilist? It's a choice. It's a choice. And I've seen glimpses of meaning everywhere, spread throughout my entire life. I've seen it in Dragon Ball Z. I've seen it... Yeah, I already had this rant before. And maybe you can see it in like a commercial from time to time, or something that somebody said, something that your enemy said to you, something that your friend said to you. You can hear something that your best friend, your family says to you that is just so like unenlightened and meaningless and might be pushing you toward a belief in nihilism, and then something like your worst enemy says to you after they beat you up or something can maybe inspire you toward the truth. Like you just see glimpses of the truth everywhere. And I think a big part, a big tool in my tool belt that has really helped me to fight nihilism and to make spiritual progress is my memory, is my long-term memory. I remember my childhood. I remember discussions from my childhood, from all the way back. I'm able to just keep zooming out and keep looking at the big picture. I can just look at like a summary of my entire life and just think, what does it all mean? And you really have to squint, and you really have to like observe it, and you have to dig deep, and the evidence is few and far between. And at the end of the day, when you try to appeal to like an agnosticism, like, well, how can you know? How can you know for sure? And because my beliefs have changed so many times, it's like, well, I'm starting to realize that it's very, very, very difficult to know for sure. And the way I think now is more of a means of like considering a number of different realities, but all of these different realities that I consider all kind of fit under this same broader category. There's like a broader category that has all these subcategories, and I consider all these different subcategories, but it's all kind of pointing in the same direction. And now I'm just kind of trying to whittle it down to something specific. So whereas Christianity in its mainstream exoteric form puts emphasis on you need to believe this, especially Protestants. It's like to gain the highest spiritual truth, it all revolves around believing this. Well, I'm getting to a place where it's like, to get to the highest spiritual truth, it all revolves around living like this. It revolves around thinking like this, doing this. So these Eastern things that I'm starting to appeal to, like Taoism, Advaita Vedanta, aspects of yoga, because yoga is very broad. I'm pretty sure that Advaita Vedanta is an aspect of yoga. Buddhism, which there's Zen Buddhism and then Theravada Buddhism. But these belief systems and philosophies, arguably a lot of the time, they put a lot more of an emphasis on how to act, how to be. It's more just instructions of how to be without, it's really, really, really important that you believe this about Buddha. It's really, really, really important that you believe this about the world. I actually started a documentary on Taoism before starting this video. And this lady was explaining like the Taoist cosmology, and they said it started with chaos. They tend to believe, it seems like they believe in order out of chaos. I would try to say that like it was like a divine chaos. I think God is the chaos is what it comes down to, and it's not chaos. So no, I have disagreements with the Taoists, and it does seem like there's this Eastern tendency to not want to believe in a God. And maybe over the years they've become rebellious against Christianity and bitter against Christianity. I'm to a point where I think all my years in Christianity and theology prepared me to dig through yoga, to dig through Eastern wisdom, and find the gems. Like, it's so broad. The Eastern beliefs are so broad that you can kind of cherry pick the gems, or really take most of it. But yeah, they're explaining how they cherry pick what gods they want to worship. You know, they have their own form of polytheism, and there's all these different gods. I mean, that seems to be like the Middle Eastern Oriental mind, or not Middle Eastern, like the Oriental Eastern mind. You know, it's the same thing in Hinduism. There's a lot of different gods, and you pick which one you want to worship. Same thing in Taoism. There's a lot of different gods, and you pick which one you want to worship. And she was explaining how if it's not beneficial to you, you pick a different one. I would even appeal to the balance of yin-yang. They say that, like, you know, good and evil aren't opposites. It's the balance of yin-yang. When the yin and yang is balanced, it's good. And when the yin and yang is out of balance, it's bad. I think there is a truth to that, but how can you say that, like, good and evil aren't opposites? It's starting to become very apparent to me the things about Eastern spirituality that annoy me. And this is where I think the truth starts to look a lot more like a secret society, bro. Okay? The secret societies were like more modern gem seekers, okay? And then I find that I have to gem seek in the secret societies. But yeah, when you start looking at like the Rosicrucians and the Martinists, who do seem to have always kind of had like a close relationship, Martinists having more of like a Christian emphasis, but I do think in the origins the Rosicrucians were also Christian mystics. These people contemplated the old Eastern gems and mysteries and maybe did some of the best job of making sense of it, alongside mystics like Meister Eckhart and maybe Jacob Burma, but I don't know. I don't really know what I think of that guy. And this is what it always comes down to, dude. A big rant that people are just like, oh, I don't know, I'm bored, dude. I think everything is Christianity's fault, and they don't want to listen. And at the end of the day, they might be right, because, yeah, it sounds like I'm kind of not really like a Christian anymore, but I do still pray to Jesus. And for anybody who wants to listen, Jesus did teach you a way to live, but he did put a high emphasis on that he was God. But what it all boils down to me, guys, is like making a decision to live a certain way. I believe that it's a decision to not be a nihilist. And I do think being in physical condition, being in good shape, is a decision that reflects that. And I feel like when you're out of shape, you're deep in a nihilist direction, where it's like, oh, you know, there's no point to take care of my body. There's no point to be in good health. And a lot of black pill people like tend to appeal to that. Like, oh, there's no point to even try because I didn't have the perfect genetics to begin with. And I make a conscious decision to fight nihilism, but beyond that, I feel like it really comes from an instinct. There's like an instinct, there's an inherent understanding. I love The Lion King. I love the story in Lion King, and I think a lot of the reason that is because The Lion King is based off of mystery schools. It's based off of the story of Set, Horus, and Osiris. Set is Scar, Osiris is Mufasa, and Horus is Simba. They use that movie in the mystery schools, in modern mystery schools, to teach the story of Set, Horus, and Osiris. But, you know, Mufasa and Simba are royalty. And Mufasa explains to Simba, his son, how he's of royalty and he's going to inherit the kingdom, and this is the land that we rule over. Everything that the sun touches is ours, and everything has its place and the hierarchy, and when you look at the stars, those are our ancestors. And then everything goes wrong, and Simba, Horus, falls from royalty, and he is exiled and he's overthrown by Set or Scar, and he's cast out into the outer darkness. And then he makes friends with the common folk, and he ends up being raised by Timon and Pumbaa. Timon and Pumbaa have their folk philosophy of Hakuna Matata. What a wonderful phrase. Hakuna Matata. Ain't no passing craze. It means no worries for the rest of your days. It's a problem-free philosophy. Hakuna Matata. Hakuna Matata basically just means do whatever you want, relax, like nothing matters, so just chill, which is funny. I'm having like an epiphany. It's like that's kind of close to like the worst way that you could look at Taoism. They seem to really love paradoxes in Taoism, like good and evil are not opposites, it's a balance. And the mystery of chaos is everything, and there is order, and there is chaos, and there is everything, and there is nothing. And I could definitely see how people would just be like, dude, Taoism is just like a bunch of fucking nonsense. But I think there's something there. I think, like, you know, like, when you are ready, my student, you can grab the fly from my hand. Like, there's some gems there, but you have to, like, be patient. You have to be patient for the gems that are there. So Simba is raised by these common folk, and, you know, he learns to abide by their ways of Hakuna Matata because, hey, life is good. We just chill and we eat the bugs. But then he remembers something that his father taught him. And they're looking at the stars, and they're like, what do you think the stars are? And Pumbaa even makes this comment, I think that they're balls of gas billions of miles away. And that's the joke, is that that's the scientific view. It's like the fucking Disney movie is letting you know that modern science is in line with like folk philosophy. And Simba, under the guise that this is just his speculation, he doesn't say that he learned it from his father. He just says it like it's a thought he had. It's like, I don't know, maybe those are like the spirits of my royal ancestors watching over us. And then Timon and Pumbaa look at each other and burst out in laughter. And they talk about how stupid that is. And in that moment, Simba, that's the very moment that Simba realizes, like, I wonder what's going on in my home. I abandoned my home. I come from something different. It's inherent. Like, he knows that that they're wrong. He doesn't know why they're wrong. He's been around them for such a long time, but he appreciates them for who they are. But in that moment, he realizes, like, you know, these guys are just, they're not it. My father told me, everything that the light touches is mine. I am of royal descent, and I come from something higher, and my kind and my people have a higher understanding, and I need to go back. And that's when he comes across Nala, and then he makes his way back to the kingdom to overthrow Set, and he has to confront the past, because Set, or Scar, who I would see as like a narcissist, he's like, oh, well, isn't there a little secret that you didn't tell everybody, that Mufasa's death was your fault? You know, the rumors, the smear campaign, the slander, the flying monkeys, the lies. he has to go back to his home and he has to confront it because the fucking lying piece of shit narcissist holds that over his head. I've lived all of this, bro. This is my fucking life. I'm of the Brahmin caste. I don't care what anybody says. And he goes and confronts it, and he maxes out Scar, who fights like a coward, and he's a liar, and he spreads lies, and it's the best movie ever. Lion King is the best movie ever. And if you read the credits, they say, in loving memory of the former director of Disney who had just passed, and all the movies after that were degeneracy. But, so that was a big tangent on, like, it's just in me. There's just something in me. Like, in a world where there's almost, like, perfect explanations of nihilism. And this is what I've considered about science, is that science has created technology that can create a perfect hoax. Like, they can put a bone into a machine and it manipulates it so that the carbon dating or the helium dating or the whatever, the potassium armonite dating, whatever, radium, whatever, it produces the perfect results. So that if you just go by the science, they're getting to a point where they can create the illusion that they are proving these scientific worldviews of, like, you know, the ancient old earth or whatever. But certain people from the higher traditions and the higher way, the higher genetics, it's so hard to dance around it. You just know that there's a higher truth, and you might not be able to explain it to people. And you're a Simba, and you're surrounded by Timon and Pumbas. So what happens when there's 10,000 Timon and Pumbas and you're the only Simba, and then they all start laughing at you? Oh, you know, they counted their votes. They got 10,000 votes and you got one. Oh, so you lose. Democracy. We're losing our democracy. This is the best. Oh, we're losing democracy. Like, democracy is good and everything else is bad because we say so. It's evil when, like, one person can't be right. The majority has to be right. Philosophers have always spoken against majority rule. The majority is always wrong. Why? Because that's just the way it is. It gets to a point, you try to explain everything rationally, you try to explain everything logically, it is like, it's just the way it is. And in that sense of it's just the way it is, you can tap into it. There's people who just know. Why? Because that's just the way it is. There's just certain people who just know. I'm the descendant of John Adams. I just know that there's something else. And I've seen glimpses of it. And I've seen evidence of it spread out through my entire life. And it's just so few and far between. And I end up going on these big rants trying to explain to you, like, oh, like, you know, Christianity didn't destroy the West, and here's why. And it's like, man, I think Christianity was like a government psyop because Jesus was detrimental to the establishment and he was going against the law. Jesus was going against the government order. He was killed by the government. Paul says submit to the authorities, but Paul worked for the fucking Roman government and literally used to kill Christians. And Jesus took a stand against the authorities. And watching people try to explain that, because they're trying to reconcile the Old Testament with Paul, with the Gospels. My perspective is that those are all different things. Those are all unrelated things. And yeah, clearly they've been able to, like, stitch together a system that people seem to think works. It's getting hard for me to continue these rants because I know that so many people don't care, or the people who would care aren't finding my channel. And I do have an idea of some strategies I'm going to implement to try to save my channel, guys. But I'm not even going to get into that here. I'm just going to do it. So why am I not a nihilist? Well, there's a lot of reasons. In the same way, you know, Greg Doucette. Greg Doucette is a fitness channel. He's a memer. He's dunking on all these other fitness channels. He's been going hard against Jeff Nippard and names just kind of slip away from me. Some like short, hairy Jewish guy, Mike Israetel. But he just made a point. What he's doing right now is he's dunking on science-based lifters. And that's what Mike Israetel and Jeff Nippard represent, is science-based lifting. And he's saying that science-based lifting is bullshit because you can cherry-pick science to believe whatever you want. And it's just so funny how it's like, that's how science is, period. That doesn't just apply to science-based lifting. That applies to science-based everything. And you can watch the video I made, Why I'm Not an Atheist, figure that out. That's another underrated video. It's getting to a point where it's just like, man, like some of my best videos are not getting a lot of views. But it's okay. I got a plan. On paper, I shouldn't have even been in a bad mood today. Yesterday was great. Today was fine. It's just really kind of like, streaming. I want to be very careful with streaming. I planned this stupid pumpkin carving stream, and it was a disappointment. Which is why it seems like when the streams are completely unplanned, they're completely unrandom. One of my random streams did way better than the planned stream I did today. And so I'm going to keep that in mind. It's a choice to not be a nihilist, to fight nihilism, to continue looking for meaning, because everybody just seems to look for what they want to find. Isn't that what it really comes down to? It's not just science. It's not just science-based lifting. It's not just science. It's just life. You choose what you want to believe. I mean, that's literally true. You really do literally choose what you want to believe, and it could be a result of evidence that you found, and oftentimes it is. And some people maybe don't choose their beliefs. They're like, oh, wow, I found the best evidence and this is what I believe. But I am the perennial quester. I am the seeker, and I have gone to depths that I truly believe many people believing various different things have not gone. And it's getting to a point where I could probably just choose what I want to believe. But I choose to continue my search for the highest truth. But people choose, like they find a belief that they like, and then they start cherry picking the evidence to support what they like. They just make this emotional decision. This just sounds good to me. Atheism just sounds good to me because there's an agenda. A lot of times because they hate God. Usually because they hate morals. Because they want to be decadent. Because they want to do whatever they want. I struggle with lust. I would like to, there's a strong desire for me to, make up for lost time and play catch up and stack up a body count. It's like, well, that can't really be reconciled with the Bible. That can't be reconciled with Jesus Christ. What a lot of people would do is be like, oh, you know what? I found the evidence that led me to believe that atheism is real. So now I'm going to live this hedonistic lifestyle. I'm at a point where I don't really have the ability, it seems, to, crack down on that desire to live a hedonistic lifestyle, but I'm not going to let that dictate my beliefs. It's like, hey, this is what I want to do, and it's wrong, and I can't reconcile it with anything that I believe. I can't reconcile that as a mystic. I can't reconcile that from Eastern spirituality. I can't reconcile it from, a yogic perspective or any of it. I just can't reconcile it. I just want to fucking have some promiscuous sex because I feel like I didn't have enough. So I'm not going to, change my beliefs to try to, let that be. It just is. And right now, it's like an arrow that's in my stomach, and I just have to live with it. It's just the way it is. I'm not going to, mold my beliefs around it. So on one hand, I choose to fight against nihilism in what I believe is the Kali Yuga. And on the other hand, inherently, because of something in me, of something that I come from, something that I emanate from, something that was always with me ever since I was a child, I just know that there's more. I just know that there's more. I told this guy the other day that I've had a handful of spiritual experiences, and he's like, oh, I'd be very interested to hear about that, which, I can just kind of tell that this guy is skeptical of my beliefs. I don't think that the discussion was so bad that I highly regret it, but he was fishing and I caught a vibe from him, and I was slowly being pulled into his orbit for the way he wanted to kind of direct things. And I can tell that going forward with this guy, I'm going to go into defensive mode. I'm not going to give this guy the gems. I'm not going to just like whip out my gem collection for this guy. Pearls before swine. I don't necessarily think the guy's a swine, but it's just the way it is, man. It gets to a point where it's like, save it for yourself, live, action, not belief. There are certain beliefs that I try to steer you guys away from, like atheism or like theistic Satanism or like radical cults, but you can interact with the metaphysical through many beliefs via me appealing to the perennial philosophy, and in search to go within the cracks of the sidewalk that these perennial plants emanate from, that they grow from, where the seeds are planted in the soil of pure metaphysical truth. You must search for the Grail. You must go on a search for the Grail. I believe that whatever that highest truth is, I believe that Jesus Christ plays a role in it, plays the highest role in it. I believe that the existence of the soul plays a role in it. I'm getting to a point where I believe that the existence of past lives and reincarnation plays a role in it. I do believe that a system of karma plays a role in it, in punishment. But I keep fighting. On days like today, I was in a bad mood for seemingly no reason, and it's just like, streaming, like, hey everybody, I'm going to do this stream. It sets up a perfect opportunity for people to not show up to my stream. Not that that's necessarily what I thought happened, but I don't know what it was about today. On paper, everything's fine. Things are actually going good in my life. It's just one of those days where I got to take a deep breath, continue the journey, continue the struggle. And that's what it is. And the struggle makes you strong. And got my Dragon Ball Z shirt on. And it's like, you know what, man? I would highly encourage any of you listening to this to fight against nihilism. To make a choice to believe in something higher. There's something greater. There is a reason. Your life is serving a purpose. Your experience in life is serving a purpose. You are here to learn. You are here to experience for a higher purpose. The wisdom that you gain here is guiding you towards something greater. If you let it. If you let it. And I believe that most of the spiritual teachers, whether it be Confucius or Lao Tzu or Buddha or Krishna, Jesus, I highly recommend Jesus, even though I seem to have a front row seat to all of these people who really want to blame Jesus. Now, I will say some of your boys, like some of the first people that I confronted about this stuff, some of the earliest debates I had, I was like, hey, well, what do you think about the teachings of Christ? It's like, oh, well, yeah, that's all stolen from Zeus. But let's not even focus on, like, why I think that that's bullshit. But it's like, okay, so you like the teachings of Christ. You think what Jesus is teaching is good. But then people, maybe even adjusting, but from that point, they're like, no, everything Jesus taught is bad. But anyway, man, I gotta focus on me to some extent. I'm gonna keep this channel alive and give you a hint on how I'm gonna keep it alive. It's like it's going to splinter. It's like this channel has many souls, or it has the potential to birth many souls. This channel is going to have children, and each of the children, every child of this channel is going to embody one of the pure aspects of what I have on this channel. This channel covers fitness. This channel covers spirituality. This channel has music. This channel has comedy. And this channel is going to give birth to a child of music and a child of comedy and a child of fitness and a child of metaphysical spirituality, and those children are going to grow to save the legacy of this channel. Hear me, everyone who listens to this. That is the prophecy of how a Reformed Stoic is going to survive and thrive. I fight nihilism. It's a choice, and what guides that choice is this inherent understanding from my ancestors. And look, fuck the whole John Adams thing, dude. Like, you got ancestors who are worth a damn too, man. You might not know their names, you might not know who they are specifically, but there's people from your lineage who I believe aren't in hell, because I don't think I believe in the biblical concept of hell anymore. There's just something, your ancestors, something that loves you, something that exists, that's real, that has meaning, that whispers through the trees, through the wind, through the plants, through all the good moments you have in the bad days, through all the good days and the bad weeks, through all the good years and the bad decade, that says keep going, don't give up. This is all happening for a reason. God bless you, my friends. I'll see you for the next one. Peace out.